I cheated in 1975. I was 33 years old, married, 2 children, a life that looks solid from the outside, and for almost 50 years, I've never said those words out loud like this. Not because I forgot, because I didn't. Why old guilt is heavier than new guilt. People think guilt fades with time. It doesn't. It ferments. Young guilt is sharp, immediate, panicked. Old guilt is quiet, heavy, patient. It waits until the noise of life dies down, until the children leave, until the work ends, until the mirrors get honest. Then it speaks. It wasn't passion. That's the lie movies tell. Let me kill a fantasy right now. It wasn't romance. It wasn't obsession. It wasn't a grand escape. It was attention. That's what I was hungry for. Someone saw me, not as a husband, not as a provider, not as a role, but as a man who still mattered. That should have scared me. Instead, it seduced me. 1975 was a different world. Context matters. Not as an excuse, but as a confession. In 1975, men like me weren't taught emotional literacy. We were taught restraint, silence, endurance. Marriage was duty. Infidelity was whispered about, joked about, minimized. No one asked why men wandered. They just assumed they would. That doesn't absolve me. It explains how easy it was to lie to myself. The choice took less than a minute. This is the part that haunts me. It didn't feel dramatic. No trembling hands, no cinematic pause, just a moment where I could have stopped and didn't. That's how most moral failures happen, not with fire, with convenience. I didn't think about the future. That's another lie we tell, that we weren't thinking. I was thinking, just selectively. I thought about how it felt, not about what it would cost. I thought about relief, not about residue. The worst part? I went home. I didn't run away. I didn't confess. I went home, kissed my wife, ate dinner, read a bedtime story, and something in me fractured. Not loudly, silently. Guilt doesn't always punish you. Immediately. Sometimes it rewards you first. Nothing happened. No exposure. No consequences. Life continued, and that was worse. Because the absence of punishment taught me something dangerous, that I could live with it, what I didn't know. Then I didn't know guilt has a long memory, that it waits for the years when distractions disappear, that it comes back when you finally have time to think, why I'm saying this. Now I'm old old enough that the future doesn't scare me. The past does, because the past doesn't change. And at this age, you start asking questions you avoided when you were busy. Was I honest? Was I decent? Did I deserve the life I kept? Those questions don't care how long ago the sin was. This is not a confession for forgiveness. I'm not asking to be absolved. I don't know if I deserve that. This is a confession because silence is no longer sustainable. Carrying this alone is heavier than telling the truth. If you're still listening, if you're still here, maybe you recognize this weight, not the same sin, but the same burden of something unfinished. Stay, because the hardest part isn't what I did, it's what I did after. After 1975, life didn't collapse. That's the part people don't understand. There was no reckoning, no exposure, no dramatic unraveling. We stayed married, we raised our children, we built a respectable life. From the outside, I looked like a man who had gotten away with something. From the inside, I became someone I didn't recognize, the lie that replaced the act. The affair ended quickly, not because I came to my senses, but because reality returned. Work, family, routine. I told myself it was over. What I didn't understand was that the act was finished, but the lie had just begun. Because once you cross a moral line and keep it hidden, your entire inner life reorganizes around concealment. I became careful instead of honest. I didn't become reckless. I became cautious. I watched my words, measured my reactions, controlled my emotions, not to protect my wife, but to protect the version of myself she believed in. That's a subtle cruelty. Intimacy changed shape. We still slept in the same bed, still touched, still talked, but something essential had shifted. Intimacy requires innocence, and I had lost mine. Every act of closeness carried a quiet echo. She doesn't know who she's lying next to. That thought doesn't fade. It stains. Why I didn't confess, people ask this question like it has a simple answer. Why didn't you tell her? Because confession isn't always brave. Sometimes it's selfish. I wasn't ready to lose my life. And I told myself silence was kindness. That was another lie. Guilt doesn't make you better. This is important. Guilt doesn't automatically make you moral. Sometimes it makes you performative. I became more helpful, more responsible, more dependable. On paper, I became a better husband, but underneath, I was compensating, trying to earn a forgiveness I never requested. That creates imbalance. I was present, but not available. I showed up physically. Emotionally, I stayed guarded because deep connection risks exposure, and exposure risks collapse. So I stayed just far enough away to be safe. That distance protected me. It starved the marriage. The cost of being the good man. Over time, people praised me. Reliable, steady, devoted. Every compliment felt like an accusation because it was built on incomplete information, and living inside an undeserved identity erodes you. Slowly, relentlessly. The guilt leaked. Anyway, even when hidden, guilt leaks. It shows up as irritability, as impatience, as emotional withdrawal. I didn't connect the dots then. I do now. I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at myself and had nowhere to put it. Time did not heal. This years passed, children grew, careers ended, and the guilt aged with me. It didn't soften, it deepened. Because the longer you live with a lie, the more it becomes part of your identity, and dismantling it feels like death. The moment I realized it was still alive. It happened decades later. We were sitting together, quietly. She said something simple. "You've always been a good man." I felt my chest tighten, not with pride, with grief, because I knew something she didn't, and that asymmetry finally felt unbearable. This is the lie about time. We think time buries things. It doesn't. It waits. And when life slows down, retirement, illness, stillness, old truths surface, demanding to be dealt with. If you've carried something like this, if you're listening and thinking, I have my own version of this, you're not alone. But you are standing at a crossroads, because unresolved guilt doesn't stay neutral. It distorts love, and eventually, it demands payment. For a long time, I hid behind a single belief. The truth would only cause pain. I told myself that silence was mercy, that confession would be selfish, that revealing the past would serve no one but my conscience. That belief carried me for decades, until it didn't. When the future shrinks, the past grows louder. There's something that happens when you reach a certain age. The future stops distracting you. There are fewer plans, fewer ambitions, fewer places to run, and the past, the unresolved past, grows louder, not accusing, persistent, like a knock on a door you've refused to open for 50 years. The night the question wouldn't let me sleep. I woke up one night around 2 a.m. No nightmare, no noise, just a question fully formed in my chest. If I die with this secret, who am I protecting? That question didn't come with an answer. It just stayed. Truth late in life is different. People talk about living your truth like it's liberating. They usually mean doing it young. Late life truth is heavier. It doesn't promise reinvention. It promises reckoning. You don't confess to become someone new. You confess to stop being divided. What I was really afraid of. I wasn't afraid she'd leave. I was afraid she'd stay, but never look at me the same. Stay, but with a wound I caused. I didn't know which outcome was worse. The moral arithmetic I played for years, I did the math. One mistake versus a lifetime of loyalty. One night versus decades of care. One truth versus permanent damage. I kept concluding that silence balanced the scales, but morality doesn't work like accounting. You don't cancel harm with good behavior, you carry it. The difference between guilt and shame. I learned this late. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am something wrong. My silence slowly turned guilt into shame, and shame corrodes everything it touches. I started imagining the confession, not rehearsing it, feeling it, the look on her face, the pause before she spoke, the weight of years suddenly rearranged. Sometimes I imagined relief, more often, devastation. And still, the imagining didn't stop. What silence cost her? Here's the realization that finally broke me. By staying silent, I had taken away her agency. She lived a life based on incomplete information. I protected her from pain, but I also denied her truth. That's not kindness. That's control disguised as protection. The illusion of too late. Another lie I told myself. It's too late now. Too late to matter. Too late to heal. Too late to justify the damage. But too late is often just fear wearing logic's clothes. I had to decide who I was willing to be, not who I had been, not who people believed I was, who I was willing to be now. A man who preserved peace at the cost of integrity, or a man who risked everything for truth, even if the truth came with consequences. There is no clean ending here. I need to say this clearly. There is no version of this story where everyone wins. Truth late in life doesn't erase pain. It rearranges it. But living divided was slowly killing me, and I finally understood something brutal. Some pain is destructive. Some pain is honest. The question that remains. So here was the question, stripped bare. Do I want to be remembered as a good man or a whole one? Because those aren't always the same. If you're carrying a long-buried truth, if you're listening and you feel this tightening in your chest, I won't tell you what to do. Confession is not a rule. It's a responsibility. But know this, silence is not neutral. It has a cost, and eventually, it sends the bill. I didn't plan the confession. There was no calendar date circled, no speech written in my head. Truth doesn't arrive when you're ready. It arrives when you're done running. The day I finally spoke. It was an ordinary afternoon. That's important. No anniversary, no argument, no crisis. Just two old people in a quiet house. The kind of silence that comes when life has already happened. She was reading. I was watching the light move across the wall, and suddenly, the weight in my chest became unbearable. Not dramatic, unavoidable. I didn't start with the act. I started with the truth underneath it. I've been carrying something for most of our marriage, I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. What kind of something? She asked. Not alarmed, not suspicious, just open. That almost stopped me. The moment time collapsed. When I told her, plainly, without detail, without defense, something strange happened. 50 years collapsed into one moment. All the years I'd spent managing appearances dissolved. All the carefulness evaporated. I wasn't confessing to a mistake. I was surrendering an identity. Her reaction was not what I expected. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she didn't leave the room. She sat very still. That stillness was worse than anger, because anger would have meant immediacy. This was absorption. The longest silence of my life. The silence stretched, minutes passed. I felt naked in a way I never had before, not exposed, unarmed. Finally, she spoke. How long have you lived with this? Not why, not who, not how. How long? That question pierced me. Truth doesn't end pain, it redistributes it. I won't romanticize what came next. There was pain, confusion, grief, a sense of being rewritten against her will. I didn't get absolution. I didn't deserve it. What I got was reality. She needed time I couldn't control. This was the hardest part. Once truth is spoken, it no longer belongs to you. She needed time to feel what she felt, to decide what it meant, to integrate a new past into the life she remembered. I had lived with this truth for decades. She had just received it. That imbalance was mine to bear. The consequences were not dramatic. They were permanent. She didn't leave, but something shifted forever. Trust didn't vanish. It aged. She looked at me differently, not with hatred, with distance. That was the price. And I paid it without protest. What guilt became after confession. Something unexpected happened. The guilt didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It stopped being corrosive. It became instructive. It reminded me daily of the cost of dishonesty. It softened my arrogance. It sharpened my empathy. I stopped asking to be forgiven. Forgiveness is not something you ask for. It's something you wait for or live without. I stopped performing remorse. I focused on presence, listening, not defending, not explaining, just staying. What I learned too late. Here it is, without softness. Truth delayed still matters, but it costs more. It doesn't heal quickly. It doesn't restore innocence. What it does is end the lie. And sometimes, that's the only mercy left. If you're expecting redemption, this is not that story. There is no moral victory here, only alignment. I no longer live divided. And that, at my age, is everything. To those carrying old guilt, listen carefully. You don't confess to cleanse yourself. You confess to stop contaminating the present. Silence doesn't protect the people you love. It protects the version of you they believe in. And that version is a prison. The last thing, guilt, taught me. Guilt isn't punishment. It's unfinished business, and unfinished business doesn't fade. It waits. My final truth. I cheated in 1975. The act lasted hours. The lie lasted a lifetime. The truth, finally spoken, didn't save me, but it returned me to myself. And at the end of a long life, that is not nothing. If this story touched something you've buried, you don't need to explain. Just acknowledge it in the comments. Subscribe if you're choosing honesty over comfort. Some truths come late, but they still matter.